Over the last couple weeks, due to the wildfires in Los Angeles, water and availability of water in Southern California has become a very hot topic.
There is massive amounts of water, rainwater and mountain water that comes due with the snow, comes down as it melts. There's so much water, they're releasing it into the Pacific Ocean.
And I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state.
We're going to solve your water problem. You have a water problem that is so insane. It is so ridiculous, where they're taking the water and shoving it out to sea. Now they're trying to protect a certain kind of 3-inch fish.
I'm signing an executive order to open up the pumps and valves in the north. We want to get that water pouring down here as quickly as possible. Let hundreds of millions of gallons of water flow down into Southern California. You're talking about unlimited water coming up from the Pacific Northwest, even coming up from parts of Canada.
So in this video, we're going to demystify where water comes from that arrives in Los Angeles. We're going to look at the 3 aqueducts that bring water to Southern California, and we'll also look at the storage reservoirs along the way. Now, you might be asking, Trent, what makes you someone who can talk about California water? Well, over the last 3.5 years, I have been designing bike routes, long distance, multi-day bike routes, following the 3 aqueducts that bring water to Los Angeles. I started this project because California is, and will continue to be in a major drought. Los Angeles is a place that doesn't have much natural water. The water that was there to start was from the LA River, which starts in the San Fernando Valley, flows around the, I forget the Burbank Narrows, and then down, of course, down into the ocean. But that water source was not sufficient for a growing Los Angeles population. So I have uploaded my bike routes into Google Earth, and that's what we will be taking a look at today. This video is going to be totally informal. I'm just going to sit here on Google Earth, and we are going to explore the 3 water systems that bring water to Los Angeles and Southern California, to try to clear up information or to give information to people who are curious. I had a friend reach out who was like, hey, Trent, I know you've been working on this water project. Where should I get water to drink? Is the water safe to drink? And whatnot. So without further ado, let's jump into the map. So right here to start, you can see we've got 4 colors. This red color, that's the Los Angeles Aqueduct. And that's what we're going to start looking at today. But just to review, this blue line is the Sacramento River and the California State Water Project. And this orange line over here, that is the Colorado River Aqueduct. So looking at the 3, the Los Angeles Aqueduct was made in 1904. The Colorado River Aqueduct was made in the 1930s. And the California State Water Project was made in around the 1960s. And so every 30 years, Southern California, or rather Los Angeles, has gotten a new water project, a new water conveyance system to support a growing population every 30 years. And if you think about it, we're overdue for 2 more water conveyance systems at a every 30-year rate. So let's take a look at where our water comes from on the Los Angeles Aqueduct. So just to orient ourselves, down here is Los Angeles. We are headed up California. This is what's called the Owens Valley. There's 3 native reservations in the Owens Valley, in Lone Pine, in Independence, and Big Pine and Bishops, maybe 4. The aqueduct starts around here in Independence. Let's see if we zoom in a little bit here. Or no, it's up by Aberdeen. Excuse me. This is the start of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. You can see this straight line and the Owens River on the right. But if we continue north, past Bishop, many in Southern California will know Mammoth Mountain. Where is Mammoth? Okay, so Mammoth Lakes is right here. The water that flows into the aqueduct, or the first pieces of pipe that take water from the aqueduct, is right here at the base of Lee Vining Creek, which this is also the Tioga Pass that goes into Yosemite. And so there's an underground pipe, and you can see some water infrastructure right here. There is a tunnel that goes from the base of this creek to Owens River. Now, the line in the route here, this is not the exact aqueduct. This is the bike route that I designed. So basically, if we zoom out here, water goes from the base of Tioga Pass, and it gets released into Owens River. And I don't know where exactly Owens River, where it gets introduced into Owens River. But there is, it seems like the start of Owens River is like right here below Big Springs. And so this is the high desert plateau that is in between Bishop and Mammoth. Again, if I zoom out a little bit, Bishop is down here, June Lake, and Mammoth is up here. So Owens River starts here. Crowley Lake is one of the first storage basins or reservoirs that the LADWP made. I actually think this was Mr. Crowley who was instrumental in getting water rights in Los Angeles. He bought this whole plateau area and built this reservoir and used that for personal gain to sell back to the city of Los Angeles. So you have Crowley Lake. This is the Owens Valley Narrows, I believe it's called, or the gorge. This is also something cool, at least, is there's a lot of power plants along the Los Angeles Aqueduct. You have to think like this project was, or we're not to the aqueduct yet, but this project was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And it's quite amazing that, that we were able to do that back then. And you know what? This actually looks like an aqueduct pipe. So this might be the area where the water is reintroduced back into the river. So if we follow the river, looks like there's another hydroelectric plant. Crazy. So we'll follow the river. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Go down Bishop. You see the river goes around Bishop. The river flows down, and the start of the aqueduct is right here that we looked at earlier. The Owens River up here is natural. You can see it used to spiral all around in this big floodplain, but now it's just this little channel, and that is because of this right here. This is the start of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Built in 1904. This is a spillway where they can close the gates and water will flow over this spillway. Let's see, I've got video of it, but is there any? There's no street view. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is required to send some water into the Owens River because, as we'll see as we get south, there's a lake that dried up because it wasn't being filled from the Owens River anymore. And it was causing like toxic alkaline dust in the whole valley, and people were getting sick. So the city of Los Angeles has many programs that puts water back into the lake, or they've added new mitigations to stop the dust in the lake. So it's an open canal, just natural lining at the first 30 miles of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which come down. Let's see if we can do everything. Cool. So we have the town of Independence here. We'll keep going south. This is the Lower Owens River Project. Again, this is like a project of LADWP. As you can see, the river is in this one little channel, but it used to zigzag all around these wetlands. Like this whole valley used to be green. I mean, what's the name of Owens Valley to the natives is Panyanahu. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Okay, so it's called Payahunadu, and that means land of the flowing water. This whole valley was so rich in water and farmland, and the native people lived on this land for thousands of years. And when Los Angeles came up and took the water, made it really hard for them to live. So you can see this whole thing used to be a whole wetland. And then you can see the Owens River over here on the right side of the valley, or the east side of the valley, rather. So we'll pass Independence. We'll keep going down. This is an interesting landmark. This is Manzanar. If you don't know about Manzanar, it was a Japanese internment camp during World War II. If you're ever in the Owens Valley, highly recommend you go there. It's a really great museum. There's self-guided tours around the property, but this was a concentration camp in America. And it was one of, I think, like 5 or 6. They had an airport, really crazy stuff. But we'll keep going south. And this is where the aqueduct then becomes like super gated, and you can't access. You can't access it because of this, the Alabama spillway. There was a protest, I forget what year, at this spillway where people from the valley opened the gates and sent all the water down this spillway, and sent it back into the valley. You can see the valley's all green. And so I think they put up like this fencing all around the aqueduct at this section because of the protests that happened at the Alabama Hills spillway. Anyway, let's orient ourselves north and let's keep going. So the bike route goes around Alabama Hills, but the aqueduct keeps going on the side of the mountain. And it goes on the side of the mountain because the Los Angeles Aqueduct was completely gravity fed. There was no pumps with the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which again, made in the planned in the late 1800s, finished in the early 1900s. Blows my mind that we had the engineering know-how back then. I mean, the Romans were conveying water, so I guess it's not that crazy. But anyway, you can see the aqueduct here on the west side of town. This is Lone Pine, and the aqueduct keeps going south. We're going to take a moment here to look to the right. You can see Owens River here, and Owens River eventually feeds into what once was Owens Lake. And Owens Lake is a very large lake, having ridden it myself. And there's so much history here. If you watch YouTube, there's a YouTube channel called Ghost Town Living that is about a ghost town called Cerro Gordo over here up in the hills. Super interesting town. Great place to go visit if the roads are good, if your car's capable, and weather's good. But the lake was used for a lot of stuff. There was a boat that brought silver ore across the way to the Cottonwood Creek charcoal kilns. This was like a bustling area back in the day. We'll keep going south. You can see the aqueduct again here. We'll just check in on it. These are interesting. These are so there's like a creek here. And so this is like a waterway for water to get from one side to the other of the aqueduct. Pretty interesting. So yeah, we'll continue following the aqueduct down. See the bike route. Doesn't exactly follow the aqueduct, but it follows the route of the aqueduct. A lot of the aqueduct is not accessible, unfortunately. But we get to the second storage reservoir along the Los Angeles Aqueduct from the headwaters. This is called the North Howey. I call it Howey Reservoir. And then there's a South Howey Reservoir. The bike route at this point is on an old railroad grade, which was the Carson, Colorado Railroad, which is pretty cool. So some water goes in the reservoirs, the aqueduct's over here on the side. And eventually down here, we have another power plant. Looks like they used to fill water up here and it would go down. But another power plant. So that's the end of the open aqueduct of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Aqueduct. So from here on out, the aqueduct is on the bike route. You can see Los Angeles Aqueduct, and it is paved, which is pretty cool for a bike route. You can either ride on the pavement or you can ride on the gravel, which is on the side of the pavement. So that's pretty cool. There's also the second Los Angeles Aqueduct. I believe that was put in around the 60s. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I likely am. But the second Los Angeles Aqueduct was so that there could be more water conveyance from the Howey reservoirs down to Los Angeles. So at this point, it's like, in train terms, it's like double tracked. So the water continues on the west bench of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Here's Sequoia National Forest. We'll keep going south. I said I'd take this quick. Huge siphons on this route, which is really cool. Again, they had covered conduit. They had siphons. There was, again, no power used to pump water along this whole aqueduct. So we'll continue south. You can see it sort of zigzags along the hillsides, right? Because if it's gravity fed, it has to have a negative sink rate of like 1 foot every 100 feet. Again, water engineers, correct me if I'm wrong on that ratio. But you have to have a certain amount of drop per a certain amount of distance. Indian Wells, Freeman Junction, Dove Springs. So Dove Springs is like a popular BLM like camping site, and people bring their motorized toys out there, dirt bikes, side-by-sides, all that sort of stuff. And again, here the aqueduct is covered conduit, and there is also siphons in this area. We're actually getting to a huge siphon, the Jawbone Canyon siphon, and that's over here. Let's see if we can click the street view. This pipe was made in the early 1900s. And again, this is a siphon. Starts up here, shoots to the valley floor, and the water shoots, wow, very steep back up the other side. So very cool. This is iron pipe that's painted. All these footings are from the original early 1900s, which again, to me is like absolutely crazy. I'm sure some of the ones down here are new. But let's keep going. So here the bike route goes around the side of this mountain, and the aqueduct, what is that? And the aqueduct eventually, okay, Water Canyon Road. The aqueduct eventually spits out right here. So, or maybe down here. Anyway, we're back on the Los Angeles Aqueduct after they bored through the mountains. They made a lot of tunnels with the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Again, you can see it's squiggly lines because we're trying to keep the exact ratio of distance to feet dropped. And we see ourselves coming into Mojave. I'm going to turn off Street View. Mojave is really famous for its airplane graveyard and the scaled composites. There's a lot of aviation history in Mojave, but we'll continue following the Los Angeles Aqueduct down. And this is a really interesting part of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. I think it's like kind of like a sacred site because the river you're looking at is a concrete lined aqueduct. That's called the State Water Project. That's the last aqueduct we'll be talking about. But there's a cross section, a confluence where the two aqueducts meet, and I think that's a really special place. Or I'm just a nerd. But we're gonna continue following the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which is the pipe. So this is a popular, or I guess the other side. If I street view it, there's probably a lot. Nope, there's none. This section of the aqueduct is a very famous section of the Pacific Crest Trail. So you see a lot of hikers really loving the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and they followed the Los Angeles Aqueduct, I believe, until, let's turn off Street View, until right here. And then I think the PCT heads into the mountains. So really cool section of the PCT in this section, the Pacific Crest Trail. So my bike route follows, for the Los Angeles Aqueduct, follows the California State Water Project, which is marked in blue. Again, we'll be talking about that later. But the Los Angeles Aqueduct, where is it now? Is here. Is this squiggly line. So it comes down here, follows again the ridge line, and we get to, let's just double check. Yep, this is still the aqueduct. That's the covered conduit. Then we get to this Fairmont Reservoir. At this point, I'm a little unclear in my very loose. I don't have the exact endpoint of where it goes into the mountain, but from this reservoir, the aqueduct goes underground. It goes through these mountains, and it actually comes out about, I believe it's right here. There's a hill, a tunnel entrance that is closed in this canyon. This now, since the aqueduct comes out here in the mountain, this is St. Francis Canyon, or St. Francisquito Canyon, the long way. And we get to power plant number 1. Again, this is something that Dan and I saw when we rode the Los Angeles Aqueduct. This is the first power plant in St. Francisquito Canyon, and a key part of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. It created power for the city of Los Angeles. So the aqueduct continues south. Then after the conservation camp, the aqueduct comes back up here to Forest Route 5N27. Again, if we can load it here, or once we're at the proper height, you should see the covered conduit. You'll just have to believe me. And then this is the St. Francis Dam site. So this canyon used to be full of water. And that dam broke and killed a lot of people in the Los Angeles and Ventura counties. In Santa Clarita, Piru, Fillmore, Oxnard, all of that. South of the dam, you can see pipes coming out of the mountain, and here's power plant number 2. There's a tiny memorial to the St. Francis Dam survivors, or not the survivors, to the dam, and a little bit of information on the collapse. To be honest, I think it needs more, but it is a stain on the city of Los Angeles and its history. So water continues south. And I'm going to pop out here. Now this is the town of Santa Clarita. So the Los Angeles Aqueduct in Santa Clarita goes through the middle of neighborhoods, which is pretty interesting. If we look at Street View here, we should be able to see the Los Angeles Aqueduct here, which is pretty neat. Oh, wow, I never noticed that in the street. And then it shoots back up a hill. Again, lots of siphons used on the Los Angeles Aqueduct. So then that shoots across this valley again. This is a bike trail that the bike route goes on. Goes through like an industrial park, which is kind of crazy. We'll continue to follow. Hits underground about right here. This might be an underground water storage tank. I do not know. The bike route goes this way, but the aqueduct goes this way. You can see another piece of it here. Looks like there's a image on the pipe. Nope, totally wrong area, totally wrong aqueduct. Google fix that. Okay, let's reorient north. Okay. So I'm going to skip ahead a bunch. There's a lot of like oil drilling fields. And then the thing that you see when you're on the freeway, on the 5 freeway, right before you split off to the 14, is this big waterfall. I remember as a kid, it was always fun to see whether it was flowing or not. I remember days where this was full and days where it wasn't. So this big one is newer. I don't know when exactly it was built, but this right here, this is the original. How do I go to 3D? This is the original terminus of the aqueduct. There was still the pipe, but this waterfall, right? Los Angeles was like a new town, and they were all about spectacles in Los Angeles, and so they wanted a beautiful terminus of the aqueduct. So this is usually flowing with water still today, but of course you have the pipe, and then you can see the cascading waterfall here. I like 3D view. Why weren't we in 3D view earlier? And then there's a huge water district area at the base of these mountains. So this is one of the main, or one of the ending storage reservoirs for the Los Angeles Aqueduct. And this is likely the reservoir that LADWP then distributes water from. You can see a big earthen dam here, which is just a dam made out of a bunch of dirt and earth. You can see there's like water treatment over here. So lots of different water stuff right at the base of the San Fernando Valley. So that's the end of the aqueduct right there. That is the final reservoir. And then, of course, there's lots of reservoirs. Maybe I'll go into that in a little more detail because of the fires. And then the bike route follows bike paths and ends at LADWP headquarters. LADWP, I should have said it earlier, is the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So the bike route ends at the belly of the beast. All right, so now we're going to look at the Colorado River Aqueduct. Up here in yellow, we see the Colorado River, or roughly the Colorado River. The headwaters are up here, headwaters of the Colorado River. There must be some springs up here or something. Little Yellowstone Trail. That seems like somewhere I want to ride my bike. So like I said, these are all bike routes, and I ultimately would love to ride from the headwaters of each aqueduct. And ride my bike the whole way the water takes, not just the aqueducts. But anyway, we see this is up in the north, like in the center of Colorado, up in the north of the Rockies. So the Colorado River goes down through Colorado, through Utah, through Arizona, and ultimately down by Vegas and Nevada, and down to Lake Havasu. And in Lake Havasu is the intake for the Colorado River Aqueduct. This is super fascinating. There's like photos of, like State National Guard on both sides of the river with guns because they didn't want a dam put in. They didn't want a dam put in. They didn't want the aqueduct to take water from Lake Havasu. But Parker Dam, where exactly is the dam? Parker Dam is right here. Let's look in 3D too, because this is Google Earth. So that's Parker Dam. Before it was built, there was people on both sides of California and Arizona with guns because they wanted to protect their water. But we are looking for the aqueduct. So let's flip around here. This is the intake of the Colorado River Aqueduct. It is the Whitset Intake Pumping Plant. This is the beginning of the Colorado River Aqueduct that was made in the 1930s. Pretty incredible, if you ask me. That water then goes up to the Gene Wash Reservoir. You can see there's Metropolitan Water District. That's what all this is. And this is the Gene Pumping Plant. So this was the first aqueduct in California that required pumping to get the water to Los Angeles. We can see here we've got some big pipes going right into the mountains. William Mulholland, who I completely left out of the Los Angeles Aqueduct conversation. He was the chief engineer of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power Company. He also was working on the Colorado River Aqueduct and even the Hoover Dam. And because of the dam failure of the St. Francis Dam, there was a lot of scrutiny about if the Hoover Dam was safe. And it went through a lot more not environmental reviews, but like structural engineering reviews to make sure that the dam would hold and wouldn't fail like the St. Francis Dam. So this is the intake for the Colorado River Aqueduct. The river water shoots through these mountains. And let's go back to 2D, reset to north. And so my bike route starts basically at the Parker Dam, and we will follow this pipe that's being pumped, that shoots through these mountains, most likely goes to this reservoir as well, the Copper Basin Reservoir. And then it comes out, let's see, it looked like there was something on the map. Metropolitan Water District West Portal, what is it called? West Portal Whipple Mountain Tunnel. So this must be one of the places where the water comes out of the mountains. And it looks like that is perhaps an aqueduct, or perhaps like a buried pipe underground. But if we keep following it, you see it goes through some more mountains. It will eventually pop out of the ground, which I believe has already happened. Yep. So we have the Colorado River Aqueduct here. You can see it's open lined canal, which means it's got concrete walls, but it is it's lined with concrete and open in places. An improvement from the Los Angeles Aqueduct, they actually made it go underground when there was these little creek crossings, which is pretty cool. But let's follow this down a little bit more. This area, this whole aqueduct is pretty barren. If we zoom out again, you can see it basically goes across nothing. The bike route, there is no resupplies for 175 miles. So essentially, almost the whole route is completely in the middle of nowhere with no services, like no gas stations, nothing. But you can see here just water in the middle of the desert, which is absolutely crazy in my book. We will keep following the aqueduct here. This, it like most likely goes through the mountain again. We'll go around this mountain. There's Eagle Mountain. This was like a whole city that's gone. I don't know too much about the history of that. This is probably my least researched aqueduct, to be honest. Just zooming in here so we can see the aqueduct again. The aqueduct keeps heading east. Now we're headed along the 10 freeway, or Interstate 10, if you're not from Los Angeles. And at a certain point, it looks like it already happened here. The water goes into covered conduit. And I think, I'm speculating here, it goes into covered conduit because it's in a city, or it could be, which is Palm Springs, or it's because they needed to basically drill tunnels in the mountains to keep that ratio of fall and whatnot. So the aqueduct follows roughly that path. Here, I believe that's actual aqueduct. Again, I made these routes a while ago, and I haven't ridden this route yet. But keeps heading west through Palm Springs, through Banning, and the Colorado River Aqueduct. Most likely, some of the water goes into Lake Paris, but the original terminus of the Colorado River Aqueduct, you can see here, Western Municipal Water District, and this intake plant. This Lake Matthews is where the Colorado River Aqueduct ends. So the Colorado River Aqueduct is aqueduct number 2 of the 3. We will be back here to look at Paris Reservoir, which is the terminus of the California State Water Project, which is in blue, which we are going to go look at right now. Whew. So again, just to review, Colorado River up here in yellow comes down to Lake Havasu. which is the start of this orange, shoots across the desert, through the middle of nowhere, through Palm Springs, and into Lake Matthews. And that is run by Metropolitan Water District. So reviewing the Los Angeles Aqueduct, that again starts up at the base of Tioga Pass. The aqueduct actually starts near Aberdeen, and that continues south for 260-ish miles down to the San Fernando Valley. Now we're going to take a look at the California State Water Project. And the California State Water Project is what President Trump has been mentioning when he's talking about the California wildfires, when he talks about the Delta smelt, how we're saving water for a little fish, as well as letting the water go out into the ocean. And the way that he says it can be confusing. He's not wrong on either of those items, but I think there's some nuance here that people need to understand. So let's take a look at the California State Water Project. California State or water, the beginning of the water in the State Water Project starts at the Sacramento River, which is here in blue. The Sacramento River starts in Shasta. And in Mount Shasta, there's a park. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it immediately. Yep. Headwaters Spring. This is the source of, honestly, my favorite drinking water I have ever had comes out of this hole. The water seeps out of the volcanic rock that is Mount Shasta. And whenever you go to this park, you just see people filling up jugs of water at the headwaters. It's a really beautiful place. It's a sacred place. It's the headwaters of the Sacramento River, where water just is gushing out of the ground. And it's so good. Like whenever I'm traveling through here, I always try to pick up as much water as possible because it is the best, cleanest, most refreshing, coldest, most pure water I've ever had in my life. This building's probably some sort of water filling station because the water in Shasta is so good. Anyway, I did also mark South Fork Sacramento River. So technically, I think the Sacramento River starts up here, flows down into Lake Siskiyou, and then continues in the Sacramento River. But Sacramento River headwaters is at Mount Shasta City Park. Again, the best water you've ever drank in your life. Cool. So now let's follow the Sacramento River down to the intake. Or I guess while we're up here, we should also mention this lake. This is Lake Shasta. And Lake Shasta is a huge storage reservoir for water along the Sacramento River. It is, I believe, one of California's biggest reservoirs. Again, it's man-made, and it's fluctuated in depth a lot. But Lake Shasta is one of the first storage reservoirs on the California State Water Project. Or it's a part of the system, but we're still looking at a natural river here. The Sacramento River is over here. Looks like another dam, so that's generating power most likely. Again, this is a very rough sketch of the Sacramento River, but I just wanted to highlight where the Sacramento River comes from. Lake Oroville. This is another storage reservoir. I don't know actually if this is a part of, like if they send water here from the Sacramento River, but it is collecting water from the northwestern Sierra Nevada mountains in that runoff. And like while we're at it, there's plenty of reservoirs. What's this one? Folsom Lake. There's another reservoir. There's like 3 right here. Comanche Reservoir. What is this? Pardee Reservoir. What's this reservoir? New Hogan Lake. There's another one here. This is New Melanes Lake. What is this one? So Don Pedro Reservoir. There are tons of reservoirs in the northwestern Sierra that is collecting rainwater. I mean, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 alone that are on the same level as San Francisco. And actually, if we take a little diversion here, you see Yosemite is right here. Half Dome is right here. Yosemite has a sister valley called Hetch Hetchy Valley. And Hetch Hetchy Valley is a reservoir. We dammed Hetch Hetchy Valley so that San Francisco can have water. This is San Francisco's main reservoir. And it is so sad. Like it looks in the paintings from when it wasn't a reservoir, it looked so beautiful. This valley was almost identical to Yosemite. And yeah, it's like, to me, it's quite sad that this valley is a reservoir and has this ugly bath ring around it, to be honest. And there's a huge waterfall right there that we're just missing out on. But this is Hetch Hetchy Valley. And Hetch Hetchy Reservoir is the reservoir for the city of San Francisco. Looks like we're on the dam. Oh, that's cool, the spillway. Yeah, I mean, that like almost looks like a mini El Cap. Insane. Point being here, there is a lot of storage. There's a very good amount of storage in the northwestern Sierra Nevada. The Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation really found a lot of the worthy dam sites or reservoir sites and built them into reservoirs in between the 30s and the 60s or 70s. Okay, so this is the part that Donald Trump loves to talk about, which is the San Francisco Bay Delta. So here's Sacramento. The Sacramento River continues south here. And let's just follow it here. Then now we're getting into the farmland of the Delta. And this is a really crazy place. I drove around the Delta for the first time. Actually, it was in Walnut Grove, I believe. So yeah, you can see there's like aqueducts and water channels everywhere. But if we keep following the Sacramento River, which is over here to the left, it then outlets into this area, which is wetland, which is the Delta, the San Joaquin River Delta. And this is the area in question where the Sacramento River is the beginning of the aqueduct. I don't know the exact specifics, but they do let out water into the Delta to save the Delta smelt, which is a little fish. I do know there's plans for something called the Delta Conveyance Tunnel. And in my understanding, what that will do is build an underground tunnel that connects to the Sacramento River, and that will let water skip under the delta and get to the Clifton Court forebay. The Clifton Court forebay, just right here, is the forebay for the California State Water Project, which is managed by the California Department, which is managed by, I got their card right here, which is managed by the Department of Water Resources from California. But you see, water has to come out of the Sacramento River, come down through these squiggly lines of little rivers, and then comes into this Clifton Court forebay. From here, this is the start of the California State Water Project from the California Department of Water Resources, as we see here. This is the Banks pumping plant. There's multiple pumping plants on the California State Water Project. And let's go into 3D, because this is like just so you can get an understanding of the size and scope of this engineering project. It's actually quite incredible, I think. So they're pumping it up so that it can then go down. And as you see here, this is the start of the California State Aqueduct, or the California State Water Project. That goes into another forebay called the Bethany Reservoir. And then this is the start of my bike route. The first 90 miles of this is actually a bikeway, and it's marked here, California Aqueduct Bikeway. My question is, why is only the first 90 miles of this a bikeway? Why can't the whole thing be a designated long distance bike trail? It makes perfect sense. You don't have to ride on the road. There's service roads. Sure, there's a safety aspect, but when I ride this, I'm just going to wear a CO2 inflatable life vest and, take necessary precautions and safety precautions to make sure that nothing bad happens. Here's the gates. And let's follow it a bit. So just for reference, this is the town of Tracy. Up here, we've got Stockton. And then over to the west, we've got Livermore, Pleasanton, more familiar San Francisco. So it's almost on the same plane as San Francisco. This continues south. Again, let's zoom in. It's a bikeway. There's 2 service roads on the side. And the aqueduct dumps into the San Luis Reservoir. So there's actually a pumping plant. I don't know where exactly it is. But there is a pumping plant that pumps water from the forebay up into the San Luis Reservoir. So this is the storage reservoir number 1 for the California State Water Project. Water then gets released and continues south. So if you've ever driven on Interstate 5 through the Central Valley, you've most likely seen this open canal. Here, let's take a look at it real quick. See what it looks like from the freeway. So this is what it looks like from the freeway. This is what you've most likely seen. A lot of people get this confused with the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Basically, you say aqueduct, and this is what people think of. This is the California State Water Project. And you can see it. It's 174 miles from Los Angeles at this location. So let's reset to north and let's continue south. Okay, so a lot of people go, wasn't the Central Valley a lake? Yes. This whole basin here, from Bakersfield all the way up to Redding, this was all a lake. It was called Tulare Lake. There's still a town called Tulare, and this town is in the low spot of the lake. There was a lot of like flooding happening here, I believe probably in this area. Because this was a lake. This was the driest spot of the lake. And you know what? The delta that we were looking at earlier and the San Francisco Bay, that was the place that this lake went out to the ocean. That's how the San Francisco Bay was formed. A lot of people don't know that. But we're down here near Bakersfield, and the aqueduct is still here. Again, we've got multiple pumping plants still to get the water just back up to a higher elevation so it can slowly decline in elevation. And just very large pumping stations. We're about to get to the largest. Let's go back to 2D, reorient to north. And this is a diversion for my bike route that goes up through Fraser Park, across the 5, and over to the other side. But we're going to follow the aqueduct. So the aqueduct continues to the very bottom of the Grapevine. Crazy, we've got another pumping plant. This isn't even the biggest one. We're about to look at the biggest one. So this takes a lot of resources, a lot of power to get the water to Southern California. So we're going to keep following this to the Edmonton pumping plant, or Edmonston pumping plant. This is the largest pumping plant in the whole California State Water Project, because the water has to get over these mountains. It's near Fort Tejon State Park. This is the Grapevine, the I-5 on the, let's orient north. This is the I-5 going north. So the aqueduct stops here, goes over the Tehachapi Mountains and comes out right here in Los Alamos Creek. Interesting. And then there's a diversion. So on this left side, that is called the West Branch. And let's take a second and go down the West Branch and see what's happening down there. So again, another pumping plant to Quail Lake. Quail Lake is another storage reservoir of the California State Water Project. We're going to keep following the aqueduct down. There's a tunnel here, and then it goes to an aqueduct on the side of the freeway, which I've honestly never personally seen full. But that aqueduct, again, we're going to go back to 2D. This aqueduct on the side of the freeway delivers water down to Pyramid Lake. Pyramid Lake is also ginormous. I'm sure people could put exact numbers. I'll try to put exact numbers here. Pyramid Lake is huge. And there's actually a really great museum about water and where the water comes from and how it gets to Southern California at this Vista del Lago Visitor Center. Highly recommend stopping there and taking a tour of the history behind Southern California water. They go over the Colorado River Aqueduct, the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and of course the State Water Project, of which Pyramid Lake is a part of. There is also more storage reservoirs as we go south. So Castaic Lake, there was a fire that burned up to Castaic Lake. This is water from the California Department of Water Resources. This is another large reservoir. And then if you live in Ventura County, there's another storage reservoir called Lake Piru, which is just north of Piru and Fillmore. So those are some storage reservoirs, and I'm sure this is connected to, not very sure on this one, but Lake Casitas as well is open to Ojai. So that's the West Branch of the California State Water Project. Starting from, hold on, I'm disoriented. From right here, goes to Quail Lake, follows the 5 freeway, This is the ditch that the water is in. Is there a street view? There is, yes. We are lower than the aqueduct. Let's see if we can find a spot real quick. Okay, we can't see it, but we can see state of California, trespassing. There's the west branch of the aqueduct. Turn off street view, reset to north, and let's continue. So this is the high desert section of the California State Water Project. Again, you've got the Tehachapi forebay. These forebays are essentially so that they can control the flow of water and make sure that water is always flowing. There's another power plant. And then we'll get to the intersection of the Los Angeles Aqueduct and the California State Water Project, which we mentioned earlier when looking at the Los Angeles Aqueduct. This goes through the whole high desert. That's Los Angeles Aqueduct. There is no storage reservoirs. Perhaps this is one, Lake Palmdale. I actually, that's probably water storage. I don't see Metropolitan Water District anywhere around it. But Lake Palmdale continues going east through the high desert. Again, let's zoom out. This is the high desert above the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is down here, Los Angeles National Forest, and the high desert, Palmdale, Lancaster. If you drive that, again, let's look at a street view really quick. You have definitely seen the California State Water Project on Highway 5. And that is what you see here. Or we can't see the other side. But this is, again, what people think. When I say Los Angeles Aqueduct, this is what people think about. But nope, this is the California State Water Project, or the California Aqueduct. So we're going to continue heading east. Here's a section that I don't know if I'm able to ride. Again, part of me doing the aqueduct ride is to figure out if the route is rideable. And just to explore all the different options for biking along this route. So the aqueduct continues. It gets pumped up right here. So there's tunnels all under here. These are most likely like pressure relief valves. And it will continue east. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to continue far east to Silverwood Lake. So the aqueduct comes down to here, goes underground, continues most likely in a pipe down to the Silverwood Lake. And what's also cool, the Pacific Crest National Scenic Trail goes over this part too. So you really do get a little glimpse into water storage and aqueduct usage when walking the Pacific Crest Trail. Maybe I need to do the Southern California section of the Pacific Crest Trail because it does touch a lot of the water infrastructure. So Silverwood Lake is a reservoir made for the California State Water Project. The route uses forest roads to get down the mountain. These are roads I haven't ridden yet, 2N49, but looks like great roads to ride that are not like main roads or the rim of the world, which is a very popular scenic byway. The water comes out into this. Is this a forebay or like an afterbay? It isn't. It's called an afterbay. This is the Devil Canyon afterbay. So the water comes out of tunnels right here, as we can see. Let's go into 3D mode. We'll still orient north. So the pipes continue down to the Devil Canyon Afterbay. Again, you can see Department of Water Resources. From here, the water keeps heading south. And to my knowledge, this is my best guess of where the aqueduct runs. It may not be exact, but at this point, I'm just trying to get to the end of the aqueduct, which is Lake Paris. Let's see if we zoom in. Is there? No, but that looks like a great trail to ride on instead of a road. Cool. So we're getting down to Lake Paris. This is the terminus. This is the end of the California State Water Project. This reservoir is friggin' huge. Just absolutely ginormous. And this is, I believe, the newest reservoir in Southern California. I'll try to put a date on when it was actually made. But this is the end of the California State Water Project. So that was a little overview of the 3 different aqueducts that bring water down to Southern California. That was not a little overview. That was a deep dive into the 3 aqueducts. I'm also going to make a short version that is about a minute long. But if you watch this whole video and you learned something, let me know. If you want to support my work doing this, right? All of these lines that I'm showing you are following the aqueducts, but I'm planning on riding my bike along the other 2. Again, I've ridden my bike along the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Next is the Colorado River Aqueduct and the State Water Project. So if you want to support me on riding these bikes, I'm a filmmaker, so the point is to ride my bike, to make films, and to educate people or give people a resource to learn about where their water comes from in a way that's not just like a educational video, but something that's like fun and adventure seeking and a physical challenge for a bigger guy like me with heart disease. So yeah, if you want to support that project, I'm going to have a Patreon link down in the description. I would love you forever if you join my Patreon so that I can quit my job and I can start making videos full time. If I was free to make videos full time right now, I would have already ridden all the aqueducts. I would have a feature-length documentary about it. Those are my big lofty goals of what would I be doing if I had $1 million, dollars, or if I had the time and space to do anything. You know what? I think Diamond Valley Lake is the newest aqueduct, or the newest reservoir. But what is this? It goes into Skinner Reservoir. Interesting. So yeah, there are a lot of things that I'm probably leaving out. Maybe a few things that I have like in my fun facts historically incorrect. But I wanted to sort of like just lay all this out, right? There are a lot of storage reservoirs along the California State Water Project. There are things in California that perhaps make it so that all of the water that is available isn't being used for human consumption. Now, on the fires, there was mismanagement of water. The fire hydrants did go dry, and there was a reservoir, this guy right here, the Santa Ynez Reservoir. This was empty. This has been empty for I don't know how long. But the problem was that we knew fires were coming, and this reservoir was not full. Would that have saved all these homes? That's debatable. The winds were hurricane force winds. So, but would it have given the firefighters a better chance to save some homes? It would have. So I believe there's a lot of like half truths going on. There's a lot of misunderstandings going on. And I wanted to make this video to sort of provide like a little bit of historical context into where Southern California's water comes from. Again, like I said, like I've been super passionate about this topic for the last 3 to 4 years. And yeah, I just figure with all this information in the media right now and misinformation and whatnot, I just want to provide a resource for people to be able to understand where their water comes from in Los Angeles, in Southern California, how it gets there, and yeah, support my Patreon so that I can go bike all these aqueducts and hopefully turn them into long distance bike routes. You know, I believe that people really learn the best by immersing themselves into an environment, into an experience, and that's how I like to experience history. These aqueducts are only the start of bike routes that I want to make centered around history. So there we have it. That is the deep dive on the Southern California water systems, on the 3 aqueducts that bring water to Southern California. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave them below. I'll try to do more raw videos like this where I just sit down and talk about the things that I'm doing, because I hope you can tell in my voice I'm incredibly passionate about these aqueducts, about these bike routes, and about riding them and getting them developed into something that the public can do themselves. All right, and before I do this deep dive, I do want to mention that I have been working on 3 bike routes that follow all 3 of these aqueducts. If you would like to support my project on riding these aqueducts and ultimately making films about these aqueducts so that more people can learn about where their water comes from, click the link in my description, join my Patreon, become a member, and help enable me to pursue video and bike route creation full time. I would appreciate it. Love you forever. So I'm Trent. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something today, and I'll see you on the next video.